Hello, so this is my video reflection for Module 12, which is on science and incorporating writing and the arts and engineering into our science practices. So first I want to say I already had to give it up, I think, to my site because they already had some things built into the culture of the school in which their students are I don't want to say expected, but students know that they have the opportunity to do the sort of things that we looked at in this module. I know we go to the STEAM lab once a week, and in the STEAM lab, there's usually 4 stations. In our last month or so that we were going, one of our stations was working on studying climate change. So one of the projects the kids would have is they would have to research what climate change is. They would have to find or research one animal that was being affected by climate change and how they were being affected by it. They also had to research what ways, what can we do to combat climate change. So I think that's one of the things that, as a teacher, that helps you understand the importance of having students do their own research into things, providing them with the opportunity to do so and some guidance obviously I think is needed, but then kind of giving them the freedom to kind of see what they can come up with and see what they find is very you create that buy-in from students, I believe, that where they see that they're doing something worthwhile, that matters, and at the same time, they're having fun doing it because they're doing it with their friends, and they don't feel like they have to do it, but it's more like they're there, kind of having fun and learning. One of the other things we do in STEAM Lab is coding. So there's robots there. We've had the makey, so students are able to work with circuits. They're able to build solar powered cars. There's all sorts of little things that they can do as far as engineering. That's kind of more a free time activity. I think one of the ways that I've tried to do that in the classroom actually was one of the things that we were planning on doing in the classroom here before this whole thing happened, with the shutdowns and lockdowns and kids not being able to come to class. Was we were gonna do a unit on energy transfer, and one of the ways we were gonna help our students understand that was by having them build a solar oven. So it was pretty simple. You build a little box, cover it in aluminum foil, have them see how to best make it, and that's one of the things that we did because we saw we had to incorporate that engineering practice into our science standards into our classroom. And obviously, that was a lesson that we planned out at a training. So that was really great. We got to see how those 3 different aspects of the science standards work together and how we can use those to plan our lessons. And like I said, we had that lesson ready. We had it, we were starting to gather materials. We are going to do that when we got back from the break. And then we weren't able to. So it's kind of sad that we weren't able to see that and see how students would react to that lesson. But I think that we have it already in case we are able to get back in the classroom and work with the students again. One of the other things I noticed in this module is a lot more science as hands-on and learning, not just by reading and writing science, but actually doing it, which I think is one of the ways that helps us to learn. When we do something, we understand how it works and why it works, and it helps us to create that understanding of why we do things. And we create that buy-in with students when they're doing something with their hands and they're not just sitting there reading a book. It also makes science more real to them when they're actually seeing that they're creating something based on the principles they're learning and the concepts that they're talking about, and it makes it real to them. They can hold it in their hands, they can see it work. They can critique themselves if it doesn't work. Like, what did you do wrong? What can we fix? How can we make it better? So there's a lot of applications to this in science that obviously someone like me that's older didn't have going through school. Oh, excuse me. And I think one of the things that I struggled with as a teacher or first year teacher was the writing portion in science, where students were they would write like short reflections on things we've done in class, but they were still unsure of how to use the academic vocabulary that we had talked about and gone over in the lessons. So I think that's definitely one of the things I need to work on for next year, is understanding how to better incorporate that and helping students understand how to better use that vocabulary and why we learn it. I think that's important too. You always have to go back to why they're learning things. I think it's, like I said, it's always that buy-in with students. I have to understand they're not just doing it for the grade. I mean, some of them probably do. Some of them, don't really care. It's hard to say, but someone like, oh well, they kind of do their best and or not do their best, but just get the thing done to get a grade and see what they get. So yeah, I think that's one of the things I gotta do better at. I think another thing that I gotta compliment my students on, and the school as a whole, is they created a good atmosphere for science. I know when I did the Draw a Scientist activity, obviously I had a couple kids that just drew like cartoon scientists that they've seen on TV. Even when we did it the second time, they were still kind of went back to that same thing because that's what they're used to, or that's one of the things that it's like to them it was fun. Like, oh, he's my fun little scientist that I drew. But I was surprised that I did have a couple girls that drew female scientists and had a boy that drew a male and female scientist working together. And again, I go back to the culture of my school site is they know that, or they try to make it to the kids know that anyone can do science. We can all be scientists. We can do whatever we set our minds to it. I know at the beginning of the year they had I forget what it was called, but in Tulare they had I want to say like a short little field trip to a thing in Tulare or the county office, where it was just all girls from the school that got to go, and you got to see some science. You got to work and practice some science skills like coding, building robots, and working with circuits. So that's one of the things I think I see that MAD administration and the school as a whole is working on, is getting girls the opportunity to do science and to see that they can do it if they feel that's something they want to and they want to go into that field. I think that's one of the biggest thing is opportunities, and if they don't have that opportunity and they don't think the opportunity is out there for them, they might not choose that path. So I think it's great that we're providing that for them and telling them, hey, this is something that interests you, something that you enjoy doing. Here's here for you. We're going to support you in learning more about it. And if it's something you feel like you want to do in the future, this is what it's about. Yeah, so I think it was a good experience working through this module. Again, as a first year teacher, I think I learned a lot about just different ways, the newer, better ways to teach science, and not just the way I learned as a kid, which just sat there in front of the book and being bored because I didn't understand any of those scientific vocabulary words that were in front of me. So yeah, I think kids enjoy science whenever we do it. I know it's more of a time where they work together with their friends, or they're building something, or they're creating a poster. I know I've had them before do slides and present things to the class, which they really enjoy also. And I think I think another thing I need to work on, I think I said this, but the writing. The last thing we did as a writing assignment was an argumentative essay on genetically modified organics, and a lot of kids enjoyed it. I had a lot of kids that really worked hard on it, and they wanted to kind of show what they learned through that unit. And I had others that really struggled with it. I think my class was 6th grades. In this time of in their academic journey, writing gets a little bit harder, is because they're expected to do so much more. So that's that's one of the things that I gotta be better at, better supporting them, and better better awareness of how I can give them the support that they need. So yeah, it was a good experience. I think I learned a lot, and hopefully this time next year, I'm better prepared and better equipped to teach them and to design and teach the lessons on science. Right. Thank you. Bye.